Welcome to the Restaurant Help Podcast, a new resource for strategy and insights from some of the top minds in the restaurant business, all designed to help your business prepare for the future. This episode is brought to you by Tyson Foodservice.
Welcome to the Restaurant Help Podcast. If you're a first-time listener, make sure to subscribe for more great episodes wherever you listen to your podcast. Today's discussion is all about retail plus food service, the new formula. Joining me today is Chef Matthew Luaders and Chef Renée Howarth, both from CSSI Culinary and Marketing. Matthew, Renée, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. We're going to have a lot to talk about with this new way of adding revenue to your restaurant business. But before we get into that, can each of you give me a little bit of background about your restaurant business experience?
Sure, I'll jump in here first. So, Chef Matthew Luaders, my background is kind of all over the place. Been doing restaurants since I was about 16 years old, right? Working as a dishwasher part-time and working my way up and kind of turning it into a career in my early 20s. I've held management positions in contract food service and hotels alike, working for Compass Group and then Fairmont Hotels, as well as working in fine dining establishments. Been working with CSSI Culinary for the past 7 or 8 years as the culinary director, connecting food service manufacturers with all types of restaurants and consumers.
Wow, that's wonderful. A lot of different areas of experience, so I'm sure you can share a lot of your expertise as we get into a couple different topics today. Renée, what about your background?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a more unconventional background. I really started my career in food doing agriculture and farming. And through that, I really leaned into kitchen spaces, working in different catering businesses, a few restaurants, but most importantly, helping farmers and artisans market themselves better in retail spaces. So how can folks get their products into a grocery store and how do they talk about them? Doing that little bit of consumer education, writing recipes for vegetables maybe no one had heard of before. And then I joined CSSI and I've been here for about 6 months and I help alongside Chef Matt on his team doing research and innovation for the top 200 chains in the US.
That's incredible. It seems like you have a lot of experience of all facets within the supply chain. So that's going to be really great in our discussion, especially in how to market products. So today we are exploring retail offerings as additional revenue streams for your restaurant business. So let's get right into that. For those restaurant owners who aren't familiar with the concept of retail offerings, these are items such as packaged meal kits, farm boxes, ready-to-drink cocktails, and even home essentials. So can either of you explain kind of what that looks like as an integrated part of the restaurant's food service operation?
You know, retail as a concept for a restaurant is really what it sounds like, right? Turning your restaurant either fully or partially into a market or a bodega. You know, when I think about restaurants that have done extremely well at this or outlets that have done really well at this, it takes my mind back to some of the different C-stores and gas stations out there that over the past 10 years have slowly turned a spot of convenience and touch point with consumer into a full solution. So you think about Quick Trip, which is like a 600 plus unit C-store in Wisconsin. They have full on produce, dairy, you can get meat. They have also some quick restaurant options. They've thought this out and they're in a great space now as a model, kind of what restaurants are starting to do. Your doors may be closed, but you still have pantry items that you can sell, similar to a grocery market.
Right, exactly. And that kind of brings me to sort of my next point, that we're all kind of looking for that convenience factor, especially with this virus, and there might be a long-term psychological effect, people kind of limiting their exposure. And when they go out to a restaurant or whether they're going to the grocery store, they kind of want that factor to be all, conveniently tied into one area where they can go pick it up. So, what are some other reasons, though, that restaurants should really consider adding retail as an option to their business?
One of the most important reasons I see is offering retail products gives the opportunity for your consumer to have a restaurant experience at home. And, a lot of folks, like similar to what you said, they're limiting their trips out. So if I can get something, whether it's like a beer glass or hot sauce or even a roll of toilet paper, if I can get that delivered to my house alongside food, it makes me feel, a little bit more of that love. It makes me feel like I'm getting a little bit more than I was getting before the virus hit.
Right. So I think that kind of adding multifaceted purpose to some of these items and being able to really create that whole convenience experience is going to be key. When restaurant owners are considering this and they're looking to sort of add this retail program into their restaurant operation, what are some areas that they really need to focus on? So maybe it's inventory or their menu strategy or even portion sizes. What are some of those areas, and can you kind of break it down?
Well, I think it really depends on the operation and the type of restaurant. If you're a full service restaurant, we're really in a state where operators are beginning to take a look at what is essential, what keeps people coming back to that restaurant, whether they're starting to open up or they're ordering out. I think you're seeing restaurants slim down the menu. So you want to be sure that if you're offering pantry items or bundled menu kits, grocery kits, social game night kits, that it all coincides with what you're ordering and what your inventory is, so you're not left with any overhead.
Yeah, and I think also part of that is, what are people coming to your restaurant for before this happened? You can parse down your menus in ways that make the most sense for your consumer. Maybe you're an Italian restaurant, but you're one of 4 Italian restaurants on the block, but you make really, really good calzones. You also might have pizza on your menu, but why not narrow it down to just, that calzone, something that is uniquely you? Why are people choosing to eat there? How you can bring that into a consumer's home in a more strategized way that leans on things you can keep in your restaurant pantry.
And how important is it to sort of tailor these items to, large groups versus maybe just the single person and offering more of an a la carte approach? How important is it to consider, all types of consumers?
Well, I think it's very important. As we've seen, family meal kits and celebration kits have done very well. I think you scroll through social media and it's from the big guys like the Applebee's and the TGI Fridays down to local level restaurants. They're offering things for a family of 4 or a small under 10 person gathering for a holiday or a big non-traditional holiday social event like graduation. I'm actually standing in my window right now and I see a graduation parade going by.
Oh, wow.
And they're all wearing masks. It's very sad. What are they doing? They're not going out to a big dinner. They're probably going back home. So, maybe mom or dad don't really want to cook, but they still want to sort of bring that experience of their favorite restaurant home. So what do? They can reach out to a restaurant that has everything they need to make, taco night a reality or build your own pizza night with everything you need in one kit or bundle.
Right.
And even though we're talking about family meals, as someone who lives in an individual household, I find myself also ordering a meal that feeds up to 4 and then eating it over several days. Because when I get takeout, that way I have more than 1 day's worth of food that I don't have to cook and prepare myself. So I think that part of like an individual single house consumer with one person in it, that can apply to a family meal. I don't think you're counting them out when you're just making meals for 4 people.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely, if I'm going to take the time to even go out and expose myself and even pick up an item, I want it to be able to feed me for, at least dinner, maybe lunch the next day, and maybe even dinner again. I mean, that creates a whole nother convenience factor. So that's a great point that you bring that up. How do you think operators should go about when they're pricing these options? So, since we're kind of dealing with a few different categories from selling what's in their pantry, their raw ingredients, their sauces, their produce, their vegetables, things like that, but also items like ready to drink cocktails and even these family style cook at home kits, how should they be pricing these? I mean, it's sort of a very open door right now, and it's sort of uncertain, I feel like, because you're gauging it against what's being offered in grocery stores, but there's also an experience behind it. So should you charge more? Should you charge less than your regular offerings if you were to dine in the location? How do operators deal with this?
Boy, that's not an easy question. From what I've seen, it's really based on the restaurant. If you're a restaurant that is known for delivering value for the portion, I think you should price it accordingly. If you're looking to sell pantry items, it's pretty tough to price something above what somebody could get at retail. There's the convenience factor that somebody's coming to the restaurant, maybe they're going to pick up romaine, a couple rolls of toilet paper, and whatever you're selling, some anchovies. But to go above, what's currently in retail is pretty tough.
I also think that when you're looking at meal kits or family meals, that you should take a look at what your average price per meal in restaurant pre-COVID, what that price was, and it should be less than that. Because I think part of what drives a consumer to a restaurant is, the experience of having a wait staff, being somewhere that is not your own home, and you kind of have to shoot a little bit below that.
Right. And even with the cook at home kits, the consumer still has to actually cook the meal. So it's not being prepared for them. Although the ingredients are all, chopped and provided and there's instructions, there's still that effort that has to be put into it. So I agree with you there. I think it does need to be a little bit more cost effective as people are not able to actually dine out and be waited on. So it's a different experience there.
Yeah, doing your own dishes. The pit, man.
Thinking about that further, I do think that there's some education that needs to push out to the consumer, just as we deal with fluctuating food prices against food cost. That's going to have a huge effect, right? You go to the grocery store now, you can expect to see your grocery bill to be 10% higher across the board. And now we're talking about, potential protein shortages because of plant closures around the country. So, I think it's incumbent upon the restaurant owner to stay in touch with their distributors, be it produce, dry goods, or proteins, to get as much of a forward-facing view of what the market price is going to do, and then communicate that to the consumer, either on the website or on the menu board.
That's a really good point, comparing with what the market prices are, and then, of course, Renee's point, what a restaurant was charging pre-COVID. It's all about seeing what the numbers were before and kind of adjusting it going forward. So as restaurants are, thinking about implementing these retail offerings, there's been a little bit of debate on whether people should be purchasing these items from a restaurant versus a grocery store. But then there's data that's being reported, and so there's a recent report out there, Brick Meets Click, that shows that consumers are making less frequent trips to the grocery store during the coronavirus. Do you think that this creates kind of that centralized convenience factor? Do you think that there are definitely benefits to providing retail-like offerings in a restaurant?
Yeah, I think that I know in terms of households looking at what a restaurant is offering retail, I trust that they will have something in stock more than I can trust my local grocery store will have it in stock. And
Really?
also, yeah, sometimes you go to the grocery store and you can't find chicken thighs anymore. And I know that I can, order from a local restaurant that's also I can get my delivery, my dinner that I don't have to cook, and I also can also get those chicken thighs. So it gives consumers the opportunity to play a part in the supply chain in a different place, more than just grocery. And also it can alleviate the needs for those trips to the store. So the big one is toilet paper, right? Everyone is like, where can I get toilet paper? And let's say I'm down to my last 2 rolls and I forgot to get it when I went to the grocery store last. And I have a full fridge full of food, but I can get a 4 pack of Charmin while, getting a pizza delivered. I'm going to do that. And then it's going to prevent me going to the grocery store for one item for another few days so that I have time in between those trips and I'm not feeling the pressure to go because of 1 or 2 items.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think we're all trying to sort of avoid the store. I know that I have successfully gone 60 days without actually having to go to like a Target or a Walmart or anything like that to get some of those toiletry items, which I'm very impressed. But it's getting
As am I with you. That's very like pat on the back.
I guess I prepared. It's like I knew this was coming. Not really, but yeah. So now I make a trip to the grocery store every other week. But when I get some of that takeout food, to know that I can get some of those home essentials, if I'm running low on even dish soap or simple things like that, it's nice to just be able to add that to that food order. So it's just a creative way to really make it easier for everybody right now. This is such a tough time, such an uncertain, world out there right now. So I think it really does create all of that, convenience factor. And that's really, that's the name of the game, I think, right now is, convenience and reducing the risk of exposure to the virus.
Absolutely.
So, can either of you give maybe some actual examples of operators that are successfully doing this? Can you drop a few names? Have you had any personal experience where, like you just said, Renee, picking up the Charmin with the pizza? Can you kind of give some of those names of those operators that have done this really well?
Yeah, so I am located in Chicago. We have been ordering from Farm Bar, which is a local farm to table restaurant chain. And I've been able to get, flour from them when I need it, extra rolls of toilet paper, and also some really great local products that maybe I wouldn't be able to find at, the grocery store that is closest to me that's a big chain versus something that's a little bit more niche.
Matthew, have you had any personal interaction or experience? Any restaurants that you've gone to that you can share with us?
Yeah, also located in Chicago, I frequent the smaller restaurants that are, within a 3 block radius of me. One that's been getting a lot of buzz is Park and Field in Logan Square. They seem to have really embraced the bodega style restaurant and responded in a great way. They offer family meals. They have everything listed in kits. So their grocery kits, while it's not a la carte, they have a perfect pantry box, which comes with everything you need to make pasta, bread. It involves toilet paper, as well as chicken stock. They do a rotating fruit and veggie basket, which is kind of like, what Renee was talking about. I think everybody loves the CSAs, the community supported agriculture, and the home meal kits. These guys just do everything kind of in a box format. They also do recipe kits, so DIY movie popcorn, do it yourself pasta kit, do it yourself pizza kit. And then they also do what they call social kits. So they have a meal and wine for two, or they have a game night kit where it could be all of the above, and then they throw in a board game. What I like is you go to their website and it leads with this market box language. So if you are unsure of, what they're doing as far as retail and how they're responding to this, it's right up front. you actually have to kind of click over for their in-house, regular kitchen menu, which I thought was interesting. But they really bring you through it, and it's been well received. I also heard they have a Facebook page where the chef frequently posts different videos of them cooking, showing them wearing masks and being very cleanly. So continuing to keep their fan base connected to what's going on in the restaurant.
Gotta, create that transparency and really show your customer base that you're being clean and kind of what you're doing and what you're offering. So communication really is key. Renee, what are some tactics that you've seen, maybe even on social media, that operators have been doing that have been, very well received by the community to kind of create that experience, whether it is those chef videos demonstrating them cooking or, maybe a takeover, a contest? What are some ways that they've really been able to communicate that and then sort of create that engagement?
Yeah, so I think, we all know that we're already living in the age of Instagram right now, but I've seen a few restaurants really successfully use Instagram and the Instagram Live feature to go live with those videos, and then also to post content, user-generated content. So paying attention to those tags that people are using on social media and then reposting it to your own stories, showing that people are ordering this, they're having fun, and that is going to make me want to order something more than before, seeing someone else that is like me enjoying this. I've also seen a lot of bars offer Spotify playlists of the music that they play, in the evening, or a coffee shop, what their playlist is, so that you can kind of get a little bit more of that ambiance at home. But I think the big name of the game here is social media, because we are all spending way more time scrolling through our phones than we ever were before. And to be able to have really genuine conversations through those channels goes miles.
Absolutely. And, we all kind of have that FOMO factor, fear of missing out. So if we see somebody else doing it and they're enjoying a cook at home meal or even something more fun where there's a game included, we want to try that. We want to be a part of it. And especially when there's a whole takeover, tagging that is involved in it, and that maybe you can get your photo reshared by the restaurant, that makes it even more engaging and more fun for the consumer. So lots of great ideas coming out of this and lots of great content on social media. But if we kind of look at a more traditional approach of communication, should restaurant operators kind of be spending the revenue that they're making to kind of upgrade their signage? Should they be looking at ways to sort of kind of upgrade that curb appeal to show that there's all these new offerings?
Yeah, I know a big thing that's happening here in Chicago is we can't tell who is open and who is not anymore. So you'll see a lot of small independent operators that are permanently closing their doors, which is very unfortunate. But it can be hard to tell from afar who is open and who isn't. And if they're not, popping up on Caviar right away, then you can feel sort of at a loss. So making sure that you're updating your signage, something that's big that people can see from the road. Make sure that you're talking to your neighbors. Maybe it's telling the liquor store that's down the street that sells amazing beer. Maybe that's, being like, hey, we have a meal kit that we sell. Can I put a flyer in your case? Because people are going to go out and get beer. So why not have them a little bit of that subliminal messaging, if you will, that, hey, if you're going to get beer, why not pick up a meal kit as well? And then making sure, this goes to Matt's point about Perk and Field, making sure that when you open up your website, the first thing you see is how people can get your food still. So I shouldn't have to scroll through your summer event list that has nothing on it now, or I shouldn't have to click through a menu that doesn't exist anymore. I should be able to tell right away what I can and cannot get from you, and when I can and cannot get that from you.
Kind of going on that whole letting your neighbors know that you're open and maybe including a flyer or an insert. into their to-go offerings. How important is it to sort of create brand new partnerships that you would have not even thought about in the past? So, maybe you're offering fast casual fare and the brewery down the street now wants to include a growler in your offering and you guys partner. How important is that? I think, especially when you kind of look at your local community and what's available to you and how you can both benefit from it and create brand new partnerships.
Well, I think that question answers itself. Hopefully you play well with your neighbors, right? We all operate on razor thin margins, but everybody's feeling the burn. So I think finding crafty way to make that evident, whether it's a coupon, if you're using third-party delivery, when you scroll over on an item, maybe it tells what the pairing is with the brewery down the street or the craft cocktail lounge across the street. I think it's a great way to drive the consumer in that direction, and also thinking about what either pickup or delivery looks like. So if you're picking up, you obviously want to, pick up the secondary item, whether it's a beverage or a dessert, at a place nearby. But if it's delivery, is there a way to make that all happen in one trip? Right? So a single driver picks up both items and then drops it all off in one neat package. I think it'd be really, really appealing. I would order that.
Exactly. And that's where, technology and some of these platforms kind of have to find a way to seamlessly integrate two offerings into one. And I'm sure that's probably already in the works, or maybe that is already available through some of these platforms. But that'll kind of be key in making that a seamless ordering process.
Yeah, and there's so much community being built outside of this. So paying attention to what your neighbors are doing and having those conversations, making it one pickup space for folks. Collaboration breeds creativity. So talking to another restaurant or bar you're always going to leave that conversation with a little bit more than you had before.
Right. So that brings me to my last point about how to really make consumers feel safe and secure. So what are some strategies that you both can share with our audience and operators on how to really instill these safety measures?
Yeah, so we touched on this a little bit earlier, but making sure that whenever you're posting something and folks can see hands or people, making sure that those are gloved hands, faces wearing masks. Consider using tamper-proof stickers to seal your bags so that they're safe for delivery. Use contactless pickup options and market those. Make sure people know how you are helping keep them safe.
Yeah, Renee, I definitely agree with you there. Those are some really great points to consider. First, a big thank you to our guests, Renee and Matthew, for being on the show today and sharing their expertise with our audience on the new formula, which is a combination of retail plus food service.
Of course.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to talk on this.
Awesome. And next, I want to thank each of our listeners. Without you, this podcast would not be possible. So when you're out there in the trenches listening in, make sure you drop us a review or a rating. That's how we get feedback from you. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts and spread the word. That's it for today. We'll catch you right here on the next episode of the Restaurant Help Podcast.